Welcome back to Writing in Science Week 5. We're going to examine the question of how bilingual students can be involved in a structured revision process. Again, let's start the week with a little review to see where this fits in. You've involved your students in writing about some meaningful STEM work they've done. You identified an audience to which they are communicating. You provided pre-writing support to help students wrestle with the science concepts and get a first draft written. Looking at these first drafts, you set language goals that will take students beyond what they can do independently. The remaining step is revision. This step is by no means easy, but it's certainly set up for you if you've done the work of creating language goals. Really, any chance that students have to revise their work in and of itself is a powerful practice. Even if students are simply reviewing their own work, they get a very important message that writing is revising. It's what real writers do in all disciplines. Just as there's no question about the economic and cognitive benefits of bilingualism, there's also no doubt that it will take most bilinguals many years to become fully proficient in academic English. If their experience with school is continually being judged on one-and-done assessments, there's a strong chance that they'll get the message that task completion is the only thing that matters, and that they'll never be anything but partially proficient or unsatisfactory. Contrast that with your classroom, where you define proficient work and allow students to revise to meet proficiency. Students focus on meeting the communication goal instead of the arbitrary task, and the revision keeps them focused on their own growth rather than on a comparison with their peers. This helps bilinguals see that while learning in two languages takes extra work, the eventual outcome of full proficiency is worth it. So, what should revising scientific and technical writing look like in a linguistically diverse classroom? When possible, we can use one-on-one or small teacher-led groups to give students help. 15 minutes in a small group could make a really big difference, and it's just as applicable here as it was during the pre-writing phase. However, you know that this is not always realistic. You've got maybe one, maybe two adults in your classroom and 25, 28, 30 students. Even working in groups of 3 could easily eat up any and all available time. And even if you're working with a small group of students, you have to consider what the other students are doing and is that productive during that time. So this final week, we're going to look at classroom structures, 2 in particular, that do not rely on the teacher: self-assessment and peer assessment. Using self and peer assessment allows the teacher to make the most out of their classroom time and saves countless hours of work. It also helps students become critical readers of their work and encourages metacognition, their thinking about their own level of understanding and their own writing. And this empowers students to direct their own learning. With peer assessment involving pairs or small groups of students, it has added benefits for bilinguals. The students can often make sense of the content using a mix of academic English and their home languages. And it maximizes the chance for students to practice the oral language in tandem with their writing. And again, this is critically important. So if you already use self and peer review, you know that it isn't easy. It rarely works well if you haven't tried it before. Like any skill, it takes time for students to learn. We hope you'll take time this week to try to develop that. If you are most interested in self-assessment, you can explore a section of this week's learning to see videos of 3 different teachers trying out a simple 3-tiered self-assessment strategy in very different ways to help students anticipate, get the most out of peer feedback, to help students self-select the degree to which they'll need help from the teacher, and to just help the teacher monitor for students' science understanding. Self-assessment and peer assessment are more powerful when you have checklists or rubrics for students to use, and this is another area you can choose to explore. And when you're ready to try out peer revision with your bilingual students, I want to recommend 4 basic strategies that are important for all students. The first, make copies. This allows students to read their work aloud while others read along, and this practice is important. The second, insist on a talk together, write alone structure of the groups. One danger of peer conferencing and peer review is that a weaker student will simply copy the words and sentences of another student. And this is precisely what we don't want to happen. We need students to think critically about their own language and ways to improve it. There may be a time for group writing or working cooperatively, but let's be clear, writing together takes away the rigor from the writing task. It often places the work squarely on the shoulders of the most advanced student, and this only exacerbates any differences you have in your classroom. Whenever possible, we do not want to rob the students of the chance to struggle. If you have students that are grouped into different groups with different inquiry questions, different results, and obviously different conclusions, this is the perfect time to mix it up. Taking students from two different groups and having them revise will allow them to focus on the language and clearly communicate their ideas without having any chance of copying. If you're having all the students answer the same inquiry question and they have similar results, you may want to consider this talk together, write alone structure and divide up that time in the revision to encourage this. A third suggestion is to give students sentence stems and prompts that are specific for feedback. You'll have a chance to explore this in our Explorer as well. Sentence prompts from WIDA allow the right level of differentiated assistance. Things like, one thing I learned from your presentation was, and students can fill this in. Even better, you can apply the learning about audience and have students come up with the audience and purpose kind of sentence prompt. Your audience, blank, will have an easy time learning about blank. There is, of course, so much to creating and maintaining a classroom culture where students look critically at work and revise their writing and science. And you may be ready to take it far beyond this basic strategies. I hope you'll continue to try on your own make-it-work options and share what is working to make your classroom such a great place for bilingual excellence.